It's great to see such a big group of us here, isn't it? From so many different churches. Thank you so much for setting aside the time to be here this morning. Uh, and a Saturday morning is kind of a precious time for all of us, and some of us have given up our sleep in, or we've had to have babysitters and so on to be here. Thank you so much for spending the time to be here. Sunday school ministry is so important. Parenting is so important, but it is so difficult so often, isn't it? And I guess that's why many of us are here. Let me just share one story to encourage us, though, as we get started. I remember when I was first starting out Sunday school back in Australia many years ago now, and I was still learning the ropes. I wasn't very good at managing classes and so on. And there was this boy in my class who was, I guess, the typical, very distracted, distracting the other kids, always throwing paper aeroplanes, always, disturbing, pushing the other kids around, and all of this. And often it made the teaching the classes very difficult indeed. And I think, well, is anything going in? Are these kids really learning? Is this really worth it? Is it all just too difficult? It was very interesting just before I came to move over to Malaysia in 2015. 2015. I went back to the same church where I had been teaching this boy, and it was very shocking because this boy was now leading the church service, and he was doing some training, like an apprenticeship, to pursue full-time ministry. And I can tell you, when he was in my Sunday school class, that was the last thing that I expected from this boy. So I think that's one of the challenges of being a Sunday school teacher, isn't it? Is they're kids, and so you don't see who they grow up to be until 15 years later, 20 years later, 25 years later. And we like to have some encouragement that comes a bit faster than 20 years later, isn't it? But I hope this kind of story can help you as we get started. Yes, they may be naughty. Yes, Sunday school may be very difficult. Parenting may be very difficult. But you don't know who this child is going to grow up to be. And we must always remember what we're doing here in our Sunday school ministry, and as parents. This is frontline discipleship, right? It is frontline discipleship. It's not, in many churches you have the main congregation, say that inverted commas, and then you have the kids that go out for their Sunday school classes and youth classes, and we think, we have the main service, and this is just the Sunday school. No, that's totally wrong, isn't it? This is frontline discipleship, and whatever we are doing in our Sunday school classes is just as important as what is going on in the main service. And in fact, if you are a parent and God has blessed you with children of your own, then you have the primary responsibility to bring them up to know and love Jesus. This is your greatest calling. This is your greatest ministry that God has given to you. So it's very important, and I'm so glad that there's so many of us here eager to learn. Thank you again for spending the time. Now, just a couple of introductory things, and then I will lead us in prayer, and we will get into it. Hopefully, you can see the slides here. So the first thing is, this is my family, and thank you so much, Steph, for the very warm introduction. It's great to be here. You can see my three boys. This is about 2 years ago. They're significantly taller than this now. This is taken at Chinese New Year. But yeah, that's my three boys, and my eldest is the girl, which is very helpful indeed, because she acts as the second mother for to keep the boys in line. The second thing I'll just say is that today's session is being recorded, but it's only going to record me, right? It's not going to record you. It's not, your face is not going to appear in it in any way. And when we have whatever discussion groups, breakout rooms, they won't be recorded. So so feel free to be yourself. Feel free to talk, share in the chat. All that. It's only going to capture my face, unfortunately. Not going to capture your beautiful, beautiful faces. But once after the session, because it is being recorded, we will share the recording with you. And there has been, I have done recordings of my previous trainings as well. I have a YouTube channel, which is just my name, Reverend Tim Nicholls. You can find it on YouTube, and there's a link to it in the handout. And you can see there's a whole bunch of different Sunday school training sessions there that have been conducted, especially over the COVID period. So if you want to, watch any of those previous ones, like how to write a lesson, gospel-centered Sunday school, classroom management, all of these different topics, they've all been recorded. And this session will also go up there at some point in the future as well. Lastly, I love it when people ask questions. So we have the chat group here, and please go ahead. Whatever questions you have, whatever struggles you have, please put it in the chat. And I'll do my best to answer the questions as well as I can. I want this to be as beneficial to you as possible. I've prepared the materials, but I don't know what is your particular question, right? So if you can share your particular struggle, your particular question, then I will do my very best to be helping you with that. Now, there's some confusion on the advertising time. I think you saw that some of the messages said 11 and some of them said 1. So I don't know what time we're actually going to finish, but maybe it'll be around 12. I guess it'll just depend on how many questions you ask, how long it takes us to get through the material, but we'll just see. We'll see how we go. Okay, that's my introduction. So how about I lead us in prayer, and then let's get into it for today. Let's pray together. Our gracious Heavenly Father, we want to thank you so much for this precious time that we can spend to come together as Sunday school teachers, as parents. We thank you for the tremendous privilege that it is to bring up children, to know and to love you. We thank you especially this morning for the boys that you have put in our class, and we pray that you will help us today to understand them better, to love them more, and to be more effective in our teaching of the boys in our class. And we pray that you would indeed help each one of them to grow up and do wonderful things for you, that they would love you, that they would serve you with all their heart and with all their lives. So we commit this time to you, Lord, in Jesus' name. Amen. Well, when children get bored, we fear those words as Sunday school teachers, don't we? I am bored. The fact that this training has got so many people of us here shows that we understand what is the problem we are facing. We hate it, isn't it? We fear those words. I'm bored. I already know this. When can I go home? You see those eyes, that are kind of glazed over and, wishing that they were in dreamland. And it's our worst nightmare, isn't it? Because, we want the kids to learn. We want them to know Christ and to love Christ. We put so much effort into preparing our lessons. It's not easy to prepare a lesson every week, is it? It takes a lot of effort to prepare all the lessons and the craft and the songs and all these things. And so when a child comes and says, I'm bored, frankly, it's demoralizing, isn't it? Right? It can really demoralize you from wanting to teach, from putting in effort to teach, and so on. But of course, it's not just the attacks on our self-esteem when we see this. It's also the fear of having the class go wild, isn't it? Because bored boys, they don't usually sleep, do they? Bored boys are usually naughty. A bored boy will very soon be a misbehaving boy. Now I know what that's like. I've been involved in teaching and training in Sunday school for some time now. I remember one particular church family camp that we were having, and I was in charge of organising the children's program for it, and I taught some of the lessons. So all of the materials were prepared, and we'd worked really hard to make it engaging, to make it interesting, and all of these things. But the first session, it happened on a Friday night. I think it was like 5, or maybe it was around 8 p.m. or something like this. So most of these children should have been in bed, but they weren't. And I was tasked with teaching these children on a Friday night. And despite my best efforts, the children went wild, and the boys were the ringleaders. And I remember just stopping in the middle of the class and praying, Lord, help me. Let this be over. Yeah. I think they learned practically nothing that day. And afterwards, I slumped back in my room and tried to recover from the trauma that I had just been through. Now, of course, not every lesson is like that, is it? I mean, we don't. There's a reason we don't teach our lessons on Friday nights at 8 p.m. But I just say that because I want you to know that you're not alone if you find it hard to engage boys, right? It is difficult. I find it difficult. And I'm no expert in this topic either. We long for this kind of class. See, they're all perfectly, seated, looking at the teacher, hands up, there's no talking. We long for this type of Sunday school class, don't we? But more often than not, it's this kind of class, with the people running wild. And we know that often it's the boys that are the ringleaders. They're ignoring the teachers to have their sword fights or to make their paper aeroplanes or whatever else they are doing. Now, the good news is it's not just you. And it's not just me, but this is something that is widely observed. I found this, they're having a sword fight there with their rulers. I found this statistics online, and it says this was taken from a boys' school, so they're doing primary and high school education for boys, and they were advocating for why you need a special approach to boys, and this is what they had this statistics on it. Traditionally, boys account for 85% of discipline problems, 75% of learning difficulties, 65% of D and F grades, that means fail, 55% of high school dropouts, and 40% of undergraduates. And so if you find that you're normally disciplining the boys in your class and they're the ones that are having difficulty learning and so on, well, you're not alone. That's just how it is. That's the widespread statistics that you will find. Now, as I said, I'm not an expert in this topic. It's something I'm still growing with. For most of my life, I found it much easier to relate to girls than I have to boys. But God, in His grace, has decided to bless me with 3 boys, right? And this has done me a great deal of good in forcing me out of my comfort zone to try to understand them, to relate to them, to love them, and to disciple them. So I hope some of that will come through in the training. A lot of the materials comes from personal experience, but a large group also it comes from other parents and other teachers. You'll find them in the acknowledgements at the start of this paper. Well, let's get started. And I want us to split into groups for a moment and just share with each other these 3 questions. What bores you, right? So you can speak from personal experience. Then what makes boys bored? I want you to think of the boys in your class, ideally, or maybe your children if you have your own boys. And then thirdly, what struggles do you have in engaging boys? What bores you? What makes boys bored? What struggles do you have in engaging boys. You'll find the questions in the handout, so you can refer to them there. I'm going to divide us into different groups. Please put your camera on. Please talk to each other. Introduce yourself if you haven't already, and let's begin to share some of our knowledge and experience with others, because I don't want this to just be you learning from me. We have so much to gain from each other as well. So let's divide off, and I'll bring us back together shortly. Okay, it was great to be a fly on the wall and listen to some of your responses here. Let me just share back some of the collective wisdom of this group, and if you have other insights, I think you can also post them in the chat. It'd be great to see it there as well. So, yeah, what makes us bored, or what makes boys bored? There's nothing to do. It's not interesting. We already know it. There's something else more interesting that we want to be doing instead. It's not relevant. It's not practical. They're sitting down for long periods. They're listening. They're told to be quiet. They're not allowed to talk. It's repetitive. They've done it before again and again. It's not challenging. They've already mastered it. It's not hands-on. These are some of the answers that people have given here. And so, it's true, isn't it? If whatever it is, whether you're a boy or a girl, it's the same, isn't it? If you're not engaged in an activity, then you get bored, right? If it's not catching your attention, if it doesn't feel relevant and practical, it's the same thing over again, you feel bored. I really hope that you're not going to feel that as we go through the training today. So how do we help this? What are some of the principles here? Well, the first thing to say, of course, is that boys and girls are just different. They are different, and it's captured in that famous book, isn't it? Men are from Mars and women are from Venus. There's a lot of stereotypes, but generally it's true, isn't it? As I said, I've got 4 kids, 1 girl and 3 boys. My daughter loves princesses and unicorns. Her favorite color is pink. She likes reading and music and craft. She will happily sit and occupy herself for hours. She can come to church with me and sit through a whole long gathering. She loves Frozen. She loves Cinderella or any other Disney princesses. She's worried about fashion and her appearance. She loves doctors and nurses and playing with babies. Right? Then there are my boys, who are totally different to that, right? They love running around outside. They love playing with balls and bikes or anything that moves, really. They love building Lego, Duplo. They love stacking things, whether it's meant to be or not. They're loud. They like to shout. They're active. They've got a short attention span. They love police and firemen and any type of vehicle, whether it's a plane or a truck or a crane or whatever it is, helicopter. Their favorite colors are blue and green, and they love watching TV shows like Fireman Sam or Lego Police or Tom and Jerry and so on. Now, I can assure you that my wife and I didn't sit down with them and purposely shape them in those directions. Of course, society generally pushes the genders in these different ways, but I think they have an innate leaning towards those different directions. Now, of course, what I've just told you is stereotypes, right? Some girls, like sports and climbing trees and so on, and some boys like reading and like the color pink and fashion, and that's fine. These are not the definitions of what it means to be a boy or a girl, and boys and girls can be different, and that's fine, right? But I think all of this, it does go back to God's good design, all the way back at creation. Remember in Genesis chapter 1, and we read there, God created man in his own image. In the image of God, he created him, male and female, he created them. So God created one humanity. We're all made in the image of God. We're equal in dignity and value, but he made two genders. And so we're equal, we're fundamentally equal as human beings, but we're different, and we're different in our gender, we're different in our role, and this shines through in many different ways. Now we see the roles played out a bit in, sorry, this should be Genesis 2:15 and 18. Genesis 2:15, the Lord took the man and put him in the Garden of Eden to work it. So the man is created first. He's created as the head and the leader. He's the one that names the animals. He even names the woman. And then the woman is created second. And the Lord God said, it's not good that the man should be alone. I will make him a helper fit for him. So she's created second as the helper in relation to the man. And so if God has made us as male and female, men and women, differently, then we shouldn't be surprised that we are different. We are different in so many ways. And this is not a bad thing. This is a good thing. This is God's good design, right? But of course, it means that there will be differences in how we disciple men and women. Although many things will be the same, we're still teaching God's word, still being prayerful, we still want to love them, and so many things will be the same. But because we're male and female, we will be different. This can be reflected in many different ways. Here's just a few things to get us started, right? Boys will appear more childish and playful, less serious. Of course, exceptions there are. The boys are the ones who are more likely to misbehave, to do things that we find shocking or embarrassing. And there's some medical explanation for this. Let me just give you a taste of this. The male brain versus the female brain. Information processing. Males use up to 7 times more localized brain activity, so they often don't multitask or transition as well as girls. I mean, we say that, isn't it? That a man's brain is like a bento box, right? And a woman's brain is like spaghetti, right? Then we're different in so many ways. So the female on the other use up to 10 times more connecting matter, helping them excel at multitasking and connecting words and feelings. So boys, one-track minds, right? Girls, everything's related in some way. This reflects our experience. Chemistry. Differences in the flow of serotonin and oxytocin mean that boys are often more naturally impulsive than girls. It's true, isn't it? I mean, when a boy misbehaves, then you ask them, why did you do that? There is no reason for it. It's just it flashed into their mind, and they decided to do it. It's very interesting to observe my boys at home. They're different creatures in the morning compared to the evening, right? Because when they get tired, we call it witching hour in our household. You know, once it hits around 5 o'clock in the afternoon and they're all exhausted, they turn into zombies or something. They're just completely transformed. Because once they become overtired or exhausted, it's as if the part in their brain that controls whether or not this action is a good idea, it just shuts down. The control center shuts down, and so if they're holding a stick, oh yeah, I'm going to whack you with it. There's no thinking about the consequences of this, or that you just told them 5 seconds ago not to do it. The stick. Oh, what do you do with the stick? I'm going to hit someone with it. This is what boys are like, and often naturally impulsive, especially when they get tired. Third part here: spatial and mechanical. Males tend to do better with pictures and kinesthetic learning. Right? We'll come to this more later, but what it means is men and boys we generally don't work well with just sitting and listening, kind of what you're doing here right now. We like to be hands-on, we like to be doing things, talking it out, looking at pictures, working with my hands. My wife was just saying to me last night that I fiddle a lot. She was just sitting down at the dining table, and there was a box of pens on the table. And whenever I see a pen on the table, I just pick it up as a pencil, and I just start fiddling with it in my hand. It's like, and she said, "Can you not have a conversation without fiddling with fiddling with pencil?" Right? But this just reflects what the boys are like. Someone in one of the groups just now said that the boys fiddling. You know, they're always moving. So even if they're meant to be sitting, they can't sit still and sit up straight. They're leaning here and there, and their hands, and they're pushing, and they've got their paper, and they're scrunching it up, and because they've just got a lot of energy, and they need to be doing things. Now, it took me a long time to work this out. That when boys do fidget like this, it doesn't necessarily mean that they're not listening. Right? And in fact, sometimes they listen better when they have something to hold and something to do. A lot of the toy shops these days, they have those fidget things, isn't it, or some bubbly thing or whatever, and you can just play with it in your hands and so on. These can be great for boys, I think, because it gives you something to do that's not punching the child next to you. So back to the women. So we've said that they're better at multitasking, better at connecting words and feelings. Again, that's a stereotype, isn't it? But men generally do stuff. They're not as good at naming their feelings or expressing their feelings as women are. Memory, the hippocampus is larger in females, resulting in better memory, especially in areas connected to words. And then verbal emotive, females process words on both sides of the brain, giving girls earlier language and emotive skills. So here's one of the key things to take away. When you're dealing with young children, right? Say preschool, primary school, and so on, right? The girls are going to be far ahead in terms of their language, their ability to sit and listen to things, their emotive skills, their problem solving, and all of these things. Whereas the boys are going to be ahead on anything that is physical, right? Their muscles develop faster and so on. So anything that involves running, moving about, these types of things, the boys is going to win. Now, once I say that, you see the problem in many of our classrooms, isn't it? Because so much of our learning is based on talking, teaching, activity sheets, these types of things. It's not based on the kinesthetic moving around. And so this is the reason why the girls are better at completing their activities than the boys are. Either they're too hard for the boys because their development is slower, or it's just not suited to how they particularly learn. I think we'll come back to this probably many times in the training. I wonder what you think is the proportion today of men to women in this training session. I don't know, what number would you put on it? 75%, 25%, or it's certainly not 50-50, is it? I mean, in general, there are more Sunday school teachers that are women than men. The materials, Sunday school materials that you're using, they're much more likely to have been written by women than men. And this is not necessarily a problem, but it just means that often we're better at understanding our own gender than we are at understanding others. And so as a female teacher, you're much more likely to use things that are going to appeal to female learners, because that's who you are and that's what you know, right? And so we shouldn't be surprised then if we have more female teachers than male teachers, that perhaps that this will translate into difficulties for learning for the boys. Now, of course, we can all learn how to engage boys. So, but this is maybe one of the reasons why we struggle with this. Okay, so some boys and girls are different. I think we understand that, and that's why we can have a whole session on this. But at the same time, all boys are different from each other as well. So it's not like there's one size fits all. I can give you all the tips in the world here. It doesn't mean it will work for the particular boys that you have. You still need to understand them. you need to be flexible about it. Also, you need to understand that boys will be different at different ages and stages, right? So yes, initially the younger boys will be behind in terms of their their verbal and emotional development compared to the girls, right? But they will catch up, and by the time they become adults, or probably at some point, some boys mature very slowly, isn't it? But at some point, maybe hopefully by the time they hit 21 or 25 or something, that they're going to be even on maturity, right? So 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 for example, if it's a young boy, like you're teaching preschoolers or like really young children, then predictability is engaging for them, right? It feels safe and happy. Like for young children, they will sing the same song over and over and over again. I mean, if you've been a parent of young children, right, driving in the car, they want the same song on repeat again and again and again and again, and this makes them happy, right? And so when you're teaching young children, if your lesson has the same structure and you're singing similar songs and they can master those things, this is great for them. They love it. They'll do it again and again. But if you do the same thing as they grow up and they become older boys, and you think, oh yeah, we're going to sing the same song that we did last week, the lesson's going to have exactly the same structure. Well, this is going to be absolutely boring because no challenge, no difficulty, then it's boring. So here's the challenge: men are different. Boys are different to girls, but there's a spectrum of boys. Boys are different from each other, and boys change as they develop. So what works for younger children may not work for older children. This is why it's difficult to be a teacher, you see, because there's so much to understand about child development and how kids is, and then they're all different from each other. So in some ways, I mean, we want to learn things today and we want to apply them. But one of the key things is just being persistent at caring for them and loving them and loving them enough to understand who they are at this particular point and what are their needs at this particular point, and then and trying to help them, understanding that it might be different later on at some point, depending if I've got a different class or they're a bit older and so on. Okay. The next thing I will say is that boys need male role models. Boys need male role models. One of the things that I observe is that many boys have absent fathers. There's various reasons for this. Lots of men in Malaysia will work very long hours. Many women will as well, of course, but the statistics say that I think about 50% of women are not kind of working full time, whereas the number's much higher for men. Right? So the men are more likely to be the ones at work and working full time. But it's like, and so they're probably at home with their mother, but they might not be home with their mother, because the other thing in Malaysia is that stay home mothers is very rare. Lots of mothers also work, and so they might not be home, and so maybe the children are at home with the grandparents, maybe they're at home with the maid, and so what this means is that many boys have very little interaction with their fathers. Then they come to they go to school, they come to Sunday school. Again, there's very few male teachers in Sunday schools generally. If you are a male and you're a Sunday school teacher, I'm so glad that you're here. Please don't quit. Please continue to do it. It's so vital for the children in the class that they have male role models, so that they can see what it means to be a godly man, or if they're a girl, to see what kind of a person is a godly man that they can look for in a husband in the future, and so on. So boys look up to male role models, and we need to be actively encouraging more men to take leadership in the lives of the boys in our church. So again, I'm going to give lots of ideas, right, about how to engage the boys in your class. But the reality is, we need to think more holistically, isn't it? God gives a child two parents. He gives them a father and he gives them a mother, and a child needs both of their parents. It's very important that they have both of their parents. Um, I think the research says that the mother is more important when they're very young, but as they grow up, the male figure becomes increasingly important for them, especially if they are a boy, right? Um, and so, yeah, we can learn the tips of how to engage the boys in the class and so on, but it's still no substitute for actually having more male teachers in our classrooms. Maybe it's hard to achieve in your church, um, but ultimately, that's one of the things that's really going to help your classes and help the boys in your Sunday school, is to just have more male teachers in your classes. Okay. The next point I have here is, don't, as a basic principle, don't be shocked that boys are playful, because that's just how they are, right? You expect it, prepare for it, right? And if it's hard to manage, it probably just means that you need more training. It means you need more experience. Thank you for being here. Hope this will help you. Last thing, as a basic principle, is keep calm and show that you're in control. Right? So if you're finding the boys hard, and it's difficult to discipline them and so on, then don't let them get on to that fact. Like, don't let them see your insecurities before them, right? It's much better to save that for the leaders meeting that you have with the other leaders, and say, oh, I'm really struggling with this, I'm really finding it hard. But when you're in the classroom itself, it's very important to project yourself that you're in control, that you know what's going to happen. You give firm instructions. We're going to do this, and then we're going to do that. And if we don't do that, then there's going to be this consequence or that consequence. If we do that, then we're going to have this reward, or that reward. Once we start shouting, raising our voice, and whatever, to try and get control of the class, well, very very often boys will play on these kinds of insecurities that we have. So it's one of those interesting tips. I mean, just like when you're being a public speaker, you will present better if you pretend that you're confident. I mean, it doesn't matter that you're shaking with fear at the front. Just if you pretend that you're confident, right, you will automatically present yourself better. It's the same in the classroom. Even if you feel totally overwhelmed, you don't really know what to do with the boys, if you present yourself as though that you are in control, and you know what is happening, then it's much more likely that you also will be in control as well. Okay, so that there's a few things about kind of basic principles. Okay, the next section we're thinking about how to understand boys, but I want us to go back into groups here, and let's discuss this a little bit more together. So, two more questions. What differences have you noticed between boys and girls, and how do boys change as they grow up? What differences do you notice between boys and girls, and how do boys change as they grow up? So let me pause here. Let's go back into our groups and discuss more. Okay, so it was good to hear the discussions. Then we were talking about what are the differences between boys and girls. How do they change as they grow up? Again, I just took a few notes from the discussion here. I mean, so boys, they're more active, more physical. They like role plays. They're more coordinate. The physical coordination. They like to do stuff. Generally, their attention span is shorter. They mature emotionally slower than girls. How do they change? Well, this continues for some time, right? But they do learn. I mean, so as boys grow up, it's not that they become more auditory learners, or they become generally we maintain those characteristics. We still like to be more active, and so on. It's just that the boys will eventually catch up, being better at controlling their emotions, becoming better at their vocabulary, in the same way that the women will also grow in those areas, the other areas as well. um, so there's a question about discuss children with special conditions in the training later. Yeah, that's a good question. Maybe I'll just say a few words about it now. And of course, children can have special needs, whether they are boys or they are girls, and it can be hard to handle. If I mean that many schools and so on will have dedicated teachers that are there to support and help people with special needs, whatever they may be, whether it's they've got Asperger's or ADHD, or and these types of things. And generally, for us as Sunday school teachers, we're not trained professional teachers. I mean, we're volunteers. But maybe in your Sunday school or in your church, there's likely to be at least one trained teacher. And so I think when you have kids with special needs, it's good to get advice from others. The first thing you can do is ask their parents, right? Because their parents are with them every day, right? And they can be your biggest asset. And what I've found over the years is that when you come and talk to the parents and say, "Look, I really want to help your child the best that I possibly can. What are some tips that you find really works with your child?" Then it's not that they feel offended that you've said that their child has special needs. They know that their child has special needs. They're their parents. But they appreciate the fact that you want to take the extra effort to care for them. So go and talk to their parents and ask for their advice, and say, what ways does this child really respond to learning? What captures their attention? What really helps them? And if there's some teachers in your church, go and talk to them as well. Ask, because they would have had training and experience in this. And so on. But probably at least one basic thing is that if there are people with special needs, then you don't need to separate them from the other kids. I think it's good if they can learn together. It's a good teaching moment for the other kids to learn to love those that are maybe a little bit more difficult than others. That's good for them. But maybe you need an extra teacher or someone in that class who can give more attention to that that child, so it doesn't disrupt the whole class. So as I said, I'm also not an expert on special needs education, but those would be my tips to kind of get started in the right direction. If there are other questions, feel free to put them in the chat. I'll be happy to answer them as we go along. So let's unpack a little bit more about the differences between boys and girls. Then we'll think about building relationships, and then we'll get to the practical tips a bit later. So many of these things have been said. We'll go through it quite quickly. Boys like to be active, right? They have shorter attention spans. Well, at least they have shorter attention spans if it's something that they're not interested in, right? They've got lots of energy to burn. They can't sit still for long periods. When they're they're fidgeting. They're moving their hands. They're disturbing their neighbors. So the key with boys, then, if you're teaching boys, is they've got energy. They've got loads of energy. So you've got to channel it in the right direction, right? If you try to suppress their energy, saying, "Look, if you move again, then you're going to sit in the corner," or this type of threats or punishments and these kinds of things, is probably not going to be very effective, because they can't help it. They've just got the energy. The energy needs to be burned. So rather than trying to suppress the energy, is trying to work out how do you channel it in positive directions. Whether it's getting them to move around, giving them things to say, giving them games to play, or whatever it is. But using those things in a way that's going to help their learning and contribute to their learning rather than them fighting against you. Um, Boys tend to be kinesthetic learners, as we've said. So the three main types of learning: auditory, visual, and kinesthetic. And yeah, so they learn through doing, through playing, through building, through creating, through investigating. Right. That's why they love things that move and bounce, and the trucks and the cars and the balls and all of these things. And so to be effective in teaching voice, we just basically need to be more kinesthetic in how we do our lessons. Now, the issue here is that preparing a lesson that is full of kinesthetic activities is really hard. It takes a lot more time and effort, right? So say you were, I don't know, say you were teaching about Jericho or whatever, right? I mean, it would be so easy, isn't it, to just download a video about it, or to um, I don't know, get some pictures and put it up on a PowerPoint and tell the story and so on. It doesn't take that much time. And it's more time to find the visual aids and all that than to just tell the story by itself, right? But it's not that difficult. Whereas if you're thinking, okay, how am I going to make this creative and active? And you think, well, maybe it would be fun if we built our own Jericho out of cardboard boxes, and then we brought some recorders or trumpets for them to play, and then da, 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 da. Well, I mean, doesn't that sound a whole lot more fun to you than just putting up the pictures on the screen? Of course, it's so much more fun. But if you're going to do that, well, now I've got to, not only do I need to think of the activity, but I've got to find find the boxes and find the recorders and find this and that. And this all takes a lot of effort. It takes a lot of time. Very often it's much easier to just, and this is why I guess we default to doing audio visual stuff, because it's just easier. It just takes less time to prepare it. I mean, or what else could you do? I mean, you could. This happened in one of my kids' Sunday school class earlier this year. One of the teachers built. I can't remember what the lesson was. Was it Jericho? I don't know. But they built something out of Lego, and brought it to the class. And just because they had brought Lego into the classroom, it was so engaging. I mean, if you wanted to do it even more, then what you could just bring, if you don't want to spend all the time building it yourself, then you tell them, you just bring the pieces and tell them, work together in groups, and let's see who can build the best Jericho out of Lego or Duplo or whatever. And then, let's, at the end of the lesson, you're going to knock it down, isn't it? Because that's what happens to the walls of Jericho. That's going to be a really fun lesson. It's going to be a really engaging lesson. I don't think you're going to have too much trouble keeping them engaged or helping them learn on a lesson like that, because it's right up their alley. I mean, that's what they love to do anyway when they're at home. They just love building and these types of things. But it does take more effort. You've got to source the Lego and so on. Yeah. So basically, this is the mind shift that we need to have, is think, okay, how can we do this as an active thing instead of just an audio visual thing. One thing that I suggest for teachers is, once you've written your lesson plan, just write down the margins or highlight in different colors or whatever you like. Is this an audio activity? Is this a visual activity? Or is this a kinesthetic activity? You can just, whether you put it in red, blue, and purple, or you write A, B, and K down the margin or whatever. But just label it, right? and then step back and observe uh, how many A's are there, how many B's are there, and how many K's are there. And if you can move it from an A to a V, then that's great. And if you can move it from a V to a K, then that's even better. And the more that you're able to do that, essentially, the more engaging your lesson is going to be for the boys. Okay, so let's keep going. Boys like to have fun. Boys like to have fun. Boredom very quickly breeds disengagement and misbehavior. Um, whenever I was coming up with my class rules, I would always make sure that one of my class rules was have fun. I mean, when you're making your class, it's good to have class rules. If you don't have class rules, it's good to remind them of the class rules at the beginning of the lesson. You can put them up on the wall if you want to, or your PowerPoint slide, or whatever it is. Doesn't matter. And you're going to have things like, put up your hand if you want to speak. Don't. It's better to put them in the positive than in the negative, rather than don't hit, don't touch, don't do. You try and put it in a positive way. Listen to the teacher. Put up your hand. These are more positive actions generally. But have one of them. Why don't you put one of the things? Have fun. Our goal here is learning God's words, not to be boring. We want to have fun doing it together. It's a good reminder for you, and it's helpful for the boys. So generally, they want to have fun, and if it's not fun, they'll create their own fun, which we will then label as misbehavior. Right? They like to be challenged. Could be a competition, a puzzle, an investigative task. If there's a challenge, and preferably with a reward, they'll be much more engaged. And so, I mean, I think we get this, right? If you've ever watched, I don't know, some boys playing sport, or maybe you've watched some adult men playing board games or things like this. I mean, boys, generally speaking, are ultra competitive, right? And they want to win, and it's much more likely that you've got the boys playing the strategy games. I guess the girls generally more prefer the I don't know, the word games, Scrabbles, or the Pictionaries, or these kind of more relational games. This is stereotypes, of course. Maybe you don't get that stereotype, but this is what I generally observe, right? So So boys like a challenge, right? If we were saying earlier, if they already know this, then it's boring. But if it's challenged, then it's interesting. It's something to conquer. And this is what computer games are like, aren't they? I mean, computer games are like this. They give you challenges. They gradually get more difficult, and they get into, how do I solve this? How do I get to the next level? How do I do this? They'll play with their friends who can win this game. So you can play off this in order to keep them engaged. So just as a very simple example of this, so when you're doing your revision, usually in many classes we start off with revision at the start of our lesson. How do we typically do revision? Usually it's Q&A, right? Basically, what did we learn last week? What did this person do? Then what happened after that? It's Q&A. And sure, you can do that from time to time, but very quickly it's going to become pretty boring, pretty predictable. But there's so many ways that you could make that into a game, make that into a kinesthetic activity. I mean, simply by just bringing a ball into the classroom, preferably a soft one that's not going to get anyone injured, but a soft ball, and you have the ball and you throw it, and whoever catches the ball then gets to has to answer the next question. It works well for memory verses as well. So you've got a memory verse. You say one word, you throw the ball. Whoever catches the ball, they say the next word, they throw it. You've turned your memory verse into a kinesthetic activity already, right? Um, or you make it into a competition. One of the ones that I used to really love playing with my classes is a very simple game. But basically, you bring a dice, right? As you know, in Sunday school, usually the bigger the better, right? So I mean, you could bring one of those little small dice that you have on board games, but even better, you make your own one. You make a giant. You make a giant dice. Oh, that would be quite fun. Um, and basically, you ask your questions. You could just have them all in one level, or you could divide them into different difficulties, like an easy question, a medium question, a hard question, in different boxes or something like that. And then you ask the question, and if they get the question right, then they roll the dice, and say if they roll a 1, then it's 0 points. If they get 2, then it's 1 point. If they get a 3, it's double points. If it's a 4, then the opposite team loses 3 points, and if it's 5, then you double your points, and if it's 6, then you lose all of your points, or whatever, whatever it is. And you can have different point scale if you want for the easy, medium, and hard. It becomes very interesting already. Right now, it's a competition, and which team is going to win? Are you going to get it correct? Should we take the hard question or the easy question? That we're rolling the dice, and there's the fun of the randomness of what roll you're going to get on the dice, and it's still the same thing, right? It's revision, it's Q&A, right? Ask the question, you tell me the answer, but it's so much more fun. You see, it's because it's competitive, it's kinesthetic. You're rolling the dice around. There's some strategy involved. Yeah, this is good. So many of the things that we do in Sunday school can easily be turned into games. Even singing can be like that. I mean, I don't know what is the culture of singing in your Sunday school. Let me say, if your kids don't like singing, don't quit. Because creating a culture of singing is so important. If you put something to a song, you're so much more likely to remember it. If you grew up in Sunday school, can you remember the songs that you sung in Sunday school? Can you still sing them today? I can still remember the songs that I sang when I was about 5 years old in Sunday school or in my Christian primary school, and still remember the songs today. So don't give up. Don't give up singing in your classes. But the singing doesn't just have to be, let's put the song on and let's put the lyrics on the screen and let's sing it together. I mean, you can do that. You add actions, of course, that's going to be more fun. But even singing can be turned into a game. Where it's I don't know, it's the boys singing versus the girls singing, and which team can sing the best, and you have different. I don't know. You can have a judge, and you can have different criteria about who to decide. What was the best singing routine? Who had the best actions? Who had the most loudness? Who had the best participation? You can come up with your criteria, and then it's a game already, and it automatically just makes it more interesting and fun. So I think a lot of teaching can be like that. They love challenge. They love games. They love this, and so. It's good if we can use this to our advantage with boys. Next point, they need boundaries. So because they like to have fun, because they're so active, they've got a lot of energy to burn, it's very easy for things to get out of control. But if they get out of control, then this is bad, right? Because if it's out of control, that's also not fun, is it? Because if it's out of control, then you need to start disciplining them. You need to stop the activity. You need to do this and that. And let's face it, that's profoundly boring also. So here's the challenge, right? We want to let them burn their energy, but if you let them go wild, okay, then this is also not going to be fun and engaging either. So they need to have clear boundaries. What they need to know what is okay and what isn't. So the notes here say be slow to repeat commands, be slow to be angry. So keep yourself in control um, of, of the class. And there are ways of getting their attention back without having to shout over them and so on. And you see the best teachers can do this. They just have ways of getting the class back on track. Whether it's just with their eyes, they just look at them. I have to look in the camera and look at them, with a disapproving look, or you say, Mary, no, it's not going to be Mary. James, um, sometimes that's enough just to say their name, write their name on the board if it's a 3-strike system, or you can do other things. You can just use the clap system. If you've been in my training before, you've probably heard of this. You just get them to repeat. You start clapping, and then they repeat the same rhythm. They repeat. And basically, it's impossible for them to talk over you when you're doing the clapping routine, and so you don't even need to say anything. You just clap your hands, clap some rhythms, and you've got the whole class's attention back. It's a similar thing with you say your hands on heads, hands on elbows, hands on knees, hands on whatever, and then hands on mouth at the end. They're all doing the actions and so on. Sometimes you can just stop and just be silent, and everyone, they'll start to scold each other because because the lesson is not progressing. You can just say something like, "Okay, I'm planning to have an extra game at the end of this session, but if we run out of time, then we're not going to be able to play the game." And then with some reward, some motivation there. So there's lots of different ways to manage it, but it's very important to be clear with what you expect and to carry through with it without shouting over them. If you shout, it doesn't help. They will just become louder and drown you out. I am planning for us to take a break quite soon. I'm going to finish this section, and we're going to take a break. So this one, boys crave respect. Right? They want to be accepted by their peers. They want to be accepted by their teachers. And so, of course, sometimes the misbehavior is simply to get attention. It's simply to look cool. It's simply to make friends. And there can be various reasons for this. Like, it could well depend on their upbringing, and what's happening at home, and whether they're very secure in their relationship with their parents, and so on. But very often it is like this. So we need to recognize this. Sometimes the misbehavior it's a cry for help. It's like I really want someone to notice me. I really want someone to pay attention to me. And of course, you can't allow the bad behavior to go on, but it just reminds you actually what this child probably needs is not more rejection from you as the teacher, right? But they need a whole lot more love, a whole lot more attention, and you going out of your way to say that you're happy that you're in the class, you accept them, you're proud of what they're doing, and if they do anything good, try to praise it so that you can so that they will repeat the behavior. I mean, that's basically how behavior works. They did it in the past. They did it with the lab rats, right? If they run the right course through the maze, then you get cheese. If you run the wrong course, then you get zap from the electric machine. I mean, that's how it works, isn't it? Positive reinforcement if you do something good, and negative reinforcement if you do bad. So you're trying to build them up. So yes, I respect you. I appreciate you. I'm thankful that you did this. It helps them to repeat those behaviors to get your approval, rather than to do the negative behaviors to get your approval. But that's hard, isn't it? I mean, when they're misbehaving and so on, it can be really hard to show more love and to see them as someone who really needs you. Right? They respond to teachers who are fair, funny, and respect their point of view. Right? Um, so teachers who are able to make jokes, who are able to make fun, um, who will listen to what they think about things. Okay, this is very very helpful. Um, there's one one teacher that I observed. I used to do in Australia. They had this scripture teaching. Basically, there was a wonderful opportunity to go into the public schools and for one lesson in the week to teach the Bible to children. So most of the children in the classes in these scripture classes were non-Christian kids from non-Christian backgrounds. But for one lesson in the week, you had the opportunity to teach them the Bible. So of course this was very 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 challenging in so many ways. The advantage was that you were in a school classroom setting, and so in that sense there was some order and structure. But at the same time, they didn't necessarily want to be there. They weren't necessarily Christians that were interested. So how did you get their attention? But there was this one teacher that I observed. He was just so good at it. And even after the class was finished and so on, all the boys they'd all be crowding around him, and it was just very simple things that he did. Like he knew all their names. He created a special handshake that was unique to every boy in his class. And so as they went into the classroom, he would do his special handshake that he'd worked out with each of the boys, and do the same thing as they went out. He'd often start his lesson with some kind of magic trick or some kind of attention grabber, basically, to get their attention. And the way that he would motivate them to stay on track was if they got if they achieved some goal, or they completed their sheet, or they won the game or whatever, then what he would do is he would give them a chance to open his magic box, right? And essentially, I don't know where he got this from, probably from Japan or something. I don't know, but he had this trick box where you needed to pull this part out and push this part in, push this button and push this thing, and you needed to do it in the correct order. And if you did it in the correct order, then it would open, and you would get the prize, whatever he had inside. And if you did it in the wrong order, so you pushed the button in and you did this instead of the other way around, then the box would not open, right? And so at the start of every class, he'd bring out his box, and he'd quickly do it, and he'd open the box and then close the box, and so they'd know it was possible. And then if they'd all be lining up, you see, to want to have the chance to open the box, right? And so they'd try and win the game, so they got the chance, and then they'd go up and try their combination of doing it. Everyone else would be watching to see what they did and what worked and what didn't work, and so from week to week, this one little box just had the class captivated. I mean, you can even see as I'm telling the story, you're all quite interested in the story. It was a small thing, but very effective teaching. And as I observed this man teaching this class of non-Christian kids in public school, like, it was just phenomenal to see how he was able to engage them. And because he was fun, right? Because he had their respect with all the handshakes and all this. When it came to the teaching part, where he was telling the story or whatever, they were listening to every word that he had to say, right? Because the relationship was there, the respect was there, because they had decided that he was fun, and he was someone that they looked up to. Therefore, they would just listen to everything that he says. So, what that starts to remind us is it's not just about having the right tricks, to get them engaged. but it is something about who you are as a person as well, right? And your care and your relationship, the effort that you go to build relationship with them. And this is why it's hard, isn't it? Because all this takes effort, takes time, and can be very challenging. But it can also um, be done. Okay, next one. Boys, anger and shame can stop boys from learning. So you embarrass them in some way. Say, oh, that was a terrible answer, or you go and sit next to the girls, or whatever it is. When we embarrass them, this in front of the whole class, this is generally very counterproductive. It's better to try and deal with it in the corner, deal with it quietly, than to try and publicly shame them in front of the class. Boys want to succeed. So if they keep failing at something, then this can basically they give up, right? So I don't know if you've seen this before when you've ever set them a find a word or a crossword or something like that, some activity sheet that you want them to do in the class. And for whatever reason, either you haven't explained what to do, or you've just pitched it too high. It's just the task is too difficult for them for whatever reason. Then what will they do? Well, they'll try it for a moment. And when they realize that they can't do it, they give up, right? And when they give up, they don't persist and say, "Oh yeah, I'll try again. I'll put up my hand. Say, can you help me? I don't know what to do." No, they don't do any of those things. They just disengage from the class and start doing their own thing. Probably they pick up your craft and they turn it into a paper aeroplane. That's probably the most likely thing that they're gonna do with it, or start punching their neighbor, or whatever was the first thing that came into their mind. So it's a challenge, right? So you want to make it. You can't make it too easy, or it's boring, right? But you also can't make it too difficult, because if it's too difficult and they can't succeed, then also they probably will just give up and disengage. Boys are loyal and funny. So one of the things that I find works really well is when you kind of help them to win in some sense, right? So because so many of the activities or games that we do, they automatically involve words and writing and things that give the girls an advantage, right? So when you're dividing into teams or whatever, and you just you give them the cheat answer, here's one answer, one answer is here, or here's the here's the way to really win this game, is you do it like this or whatever. it's very easy at that point to to win them over, I guess, and to have them on your side. You're basically building good relationship with them. So yeah, so I think there's boys are unique in various ways, and as we start to understand how they tick, we're beginning to see how you can adjust your teaching in order to engage them more. Okay, I've been talking at you for quite a while, so I think it's a good time for us to take a break here and pause recording. Okay, well, there's been quite a number of questions that have been asked, so thank you so much for those who have asked the questions. Let me try and give some answers to those. So the first one, how do we minister to children from single-parent families, in this case, boys who have no fathers due to whatever circumstances? Now, I think the first thing to realize is that that's going to impact the child in so many ways, whether they lost their father because of it was from divorce, or it was from death or desertion, or whatever it is. Whatever the circumstances are, it's going to be very, very difficult for the child, and it's going to affect them in many different ways. Being a single parent is difficult. Maybe there are some single parents here, and it's incredibly challenging. Um, um, uh, you need to you should try and work and support the family, and at the same time look after their needs, and provide the emotional support and help teach all the skills. And there's just so much stuff going on, and it is important. It's so important for a child to have a father and a mother. There are lots of books that are written along this, and so I think if you yourself is a single parent, then perhaps you could pick up one of those books and have a look at them. I was just having a look at online for some of the books that are out there. So there's quite a lot of different books here. This is one I've heard of, the Raising Sons of Promise, a guide for um, I think it's for single parents. Maybe you could check out that one. But there's quite a number here, whether for mums or dads, and so on. So I think part of the first step. I mean, if you are the single mother or father, then a book like that can help you to know that there are other people going through it too, can give you some tips. I think as a teacher, these books can also be helpful in terms of understanding what they actually might be going through. But in terms of being a Sunday school teacher, if they don't have a father, and we've said that, look, it's really important that they have a father, then it's good if they can have father figures in the church setting, isn't it? Especially if they could have a now for their Sunday school teacher, then that could be something that's really important to them. You can never replace their father, but at least if they can have some engagement with older men in the church, then that can be a really positive and important thing. Okay, another one. I struggle getting my 5-year-old son to complete his Tadika homework, like writing Mandarin words, completing his abacus homework, his alphabet writing. Is there any way to make it more kinesthetic? Yeah, I mean it's a big issue. My kids have all gone through Chinese schools, and my one of my sons recently started K1, and so he's 4 years old because his birthday's at the end of the year. So he's turning 5, but he's still 4. And they give these various words that they need to learn, right? You call it ejaan or tingxue or spelling, whatever language it is, right? So his first word that he came back with in the first week of K1, that he was to learn for his BM class, was perpustakaan, right? Library. You think, well, surely you would start with like something simple like papa or mama, or some simple word like this. But his first word that he's expected to learn is perpustakaan. So if that's what your child is going through as well, then I completely empathize. It's totally unrealistic expectations. And we've found that it's been similar with some of the Chinese words and stuff as well. I mean, you expect when you're learning to read and write Chinese that you're going to start with the numbers, right? Like sun, right? At least they're ren or something that's relatively simple to write. But when you start, forcing them to learn words with 10 or 12 strokes or whatever, then it's just too difficult for their age group. So anyway, what are some tips? There are ways that you can make it kinesthetic. So I was just talking to my wife just now. She said, look, some of the things that she does with our children is she will try to make visuals to go with it. So because our kids always confuse B and D, right? So how do you? So she'll say, look, a B is like a mother with a belly, right? And then, D is like, she's got some other picture to remember D, and so to have visuals, and then she'll do the same like with the Chinese words. So the Chinese words will have different components to the character, and so she'll break it down. Say, this picture is like the water. This one looks like a bucket, and this one looks like a mountain or whatever. And then she'll try and turn it into a story. So the boy was going up the mountain, and then his bucket fell over and the water fell out, and then she's turned it into a story. So these things can move it from just simple rote learning to some kind of memory aids or devices, visualizations. Then in terms of the kinesthetic stuff, so rather than just writing it on the paper, at home we have a whiteboard or a blackboard. The IKEA ones. I think every family has got one of those IKEA blackboard whiteboards. I mean, they're awesome, right? So instead, you can write the words on that instead of writing it on the paper. So just using chalk or something else just changes the experience, makes it a bit more hands-on. You can use magnet boards. Magnet boards can be really good for the spelling. So there's quite a lot of ways to make it more kinesthetic, and that can definitely help them to learn. Okay, and then there's one about discipline. The child coming, poking eyes from school, trying to saying mean words, hitting each other. Yeah. Again, I think this is common. We can't control what happens with other kids at school, and and occasionally our kids will also come home and they will say something that is inappropriate or do something that was inappropriate. Who taught you that, or where did you learn it from? And potentially that can also happen in our Sunday school classes as well. So is it common for a child to learn to say or do bad things? Yes, it is very common, because if their friend is doing it, then they'll probably do it too. But many times they will also learn it from us as parents, and I think this can be quite scary. I mean, one of the easiest. This is not an effective way of parenting, but it's a common way of parenting, and it's a way that I often parent my kids, is that if you want them to do something, then basically you threaten them. You say, if you don't do this, then I'm going to do this, right? You get no dessert or no TV, or I'm going to take your Duplo toy, or I'm going to do this or that. This type of thing. Lots of threats, and it becomes scary when you realize that the kids learn it and then apply it in their own setting. So, say the siblings my kids is playing with each other, and sometimes they play all kinds of role-playing games. Like they might play the teacher's game, or the parents, the parents and children's game, or whatever game that they take on, and then they'll start repeating the same things. They say, if you don't go to bed, then I'm going to ABC to you, or whatever. And you're like, in my own disciplining techniques, I've taught my child to threaten other children, and so it's very difficult. I mean, it's common as parents to make this mistake, but they're observing everything that they see, either from their teachers, from the other children, and from you. So this is very hard. And so this person's also asking about caning. So you're trying to cane them. So now they're caning me. Because in that sense, you're also saying, right, if someone's doing something that you don't want, then the solution to it is to hit them, right? And so when they don't get what they want, what do? You're teaching them to violently hit another child. So this is why I think we need to be very very sparing and very careful about how to use physical punishment. Sometimes it can have unwanted effects for us. A lot of parenting books will talk about this. There's one parenting book called Shepherding a Child's Heart by Ted Tripp. Not everything in that book is good, but lots of things are. And basically the premise of the book, what it's reminding us, is that to change someone's behavior, you first need to change their heart. And only the gospel of grace can change someone's heart. So a lot of so it's not just about saying do this, if you don't do this, then they will have these consequences. Of course, that's important, but why is this thing important? Why did you do this, and what was the effects on it? And trying to get deeper to the heart of the matter, then that can help too. I think if it's happening at school, of course, please talk to the school teachers. You can even talk to the other parents if you have a relationship with them. Okay, if there's more questions, feel free to put them in the chat. Thanks so much for those who've asked those. Let's go back into our groups, and I've got 2 questions to reflect on the previous section. Uh, so we've talked about understanding boys, and how they work, the various characteristics. So, is there anything else that you would add to my list that I've just gone through? Um, and then maybe you can spend more time on the second question. Choose 2 or 3 of the points that you think you need to take greater account of in your class. How could you factor that particular point in as you teach your class, right? So the points. Let me just go over them again. Boys like to be active. They tend to be kinesthetic learners. They like to have fun. They like to be challenged. They need boundaries. They crave respect. They respond to teachers who are fair and funny and respect their point of view. Anger and shame can stop learning. Boys want to succeed. They're loyal and funny. So there's about 10 or more points there. So maybe you just, I mean, it's very difficult to apply all 10 points. You see, I think it's easier to change one thing at a time. So maybe as you review over that list, what's 1 or 2 things that you think, yeah, that one in particular, I can think more about that, and then how could I apply that in my class? You'll notice towards the end of the notes there is it's something like an action plan. It's on page 19, and the idea is that you will collect your answers from these various discussion sections. You collect them on one page or something, and then that's your action plan. That's that's how you're going to change moving forward. You can't change everything, but you'll focus on those 1 or 2 points in each area, and see what difference that makes. Okay, I'm going to stop talking here. Let's go back into our groups and think about how you can be applying these things in your particular setting. Okay, so hopefully you've gained some ideas from each other, and you've got a few concrete things to work on. We're going to talk about relationships with boys, building relationships, and then we will move to the last section, which is all the practical tips and so on. But as I was saying, I think engaging with boys, it's not just about having the right the right tips or strategies. Like, if I can just come up with the right game or something like that, then that suddenly means that I'm going to get their attention. All that's helpful, but the teacher-student relationship is also really, really, really important. And so before we get to all the practical tips, I just want to emphasize that again. There's no substitute for actually having a genuine love for the child, wanting to see them grow and know Jesus, caring about what's going on in their life, and going to the effort to really get to know who they are as a person. It's so important. So let's just talk about that briefly before we move on to all the tips. Of course, it doesn't come naturally. It requires intentionality, right? And here's where it makes a big difference if you can teach the same class regularly, ideally weekly. I think what happens in quite a number of churches is that you will have some kind of roster, and maybe you teach once a month, and then on the other weeks someone else will teach the class. For all kinds of reasons, that's not very good for teaching the children, because essentially what it does is it you lose the number one, you lose the continuity from week to week. One teacher will have one set of rules, maybe another teacher has a different set of rules. You don't really know what's going on in their life, because what you talked about 1 month ago it's a long gap from once you last saw them, and you can't build on things from week to week. For so many reasons, it's just more challenging, and so it's always going to be better if you can be in the same class every week. I mean, maybe there's roster. Maybe you don't have to teach the lesson every week, but even if you are present every week, you assist while the other teacher teaches, and so on. And so you've got this regular interaction with them on a weekly basis. Well, this is going to be so much better over time. You're going to build a relationship with them, and you're going to really know what's happening in their lives. Now, of course, if you're going to do that, then it's going to be a high commitment, because you're going to need to attend more than one service, right? Because if your Sunday school is during the service, then and you're going every week, then you're not going to be sitting in church. That's obviously not acceptable. So um, your church would need to have more than one service, for example, and then you can teach in one and you can attend the service in the other one. And that's going to be a big commitment on your part, especially if you've got your own children, and so on. But that's really the ideal, you see. The more time you can spend in the class, the more you can build the relation. It's going to make a big difference. But however much time you have, you want to try and get to know them, and there's various ways to get to know them. Especially it's kind of the before and after class stuff. There's also the when they're doing their crafts or their different activities, and they're kind of maybe they're working on their own a bit. These are really good times to get to know them better, right? And to chat to them, to ask them all kinds of questions. Ask them about their life and so on. So maybe they come into class and they're wearing a particular T-shirt, and it's a Spider-Man T-shirt, or it's a whatever. Well, ask them about it. Oh, you like Spider-Man. What do you like about it? What's your favorite color? Oh, that's a cool hat you got. Or they come in with their phone. I mean, I don't recommend you allow them to have devices to bring in the class. I would tell them to put it away, or I will confiscate it. But yeah, it says before class, it's not disrupting anyone, and they're playing some game. Oh, what game is that? How do you play it? What's your highest score, or whatever it is, doesn't matter. But you're just taking an interest in their life, and what matters to them. What do they care about? What TV shows are they watching? What computer games do they like? Do they have pets? Do they play any sports? Do they what do they like to eat? What sweets do they like? Whatever it is, doesn't matter. What did they do during the week? What was something exciting they did on the weekend? I mean, often they will have their whatever stories or whatever, and they'll be delighted to tell you what it is. I think it's really helpful to actually have some time to actually talk to them, and so on. So don't. Sometimes we're rushing to our classroom to get things set up, set up our slides or our whatever it is that we're getting ready, and we lose those moments of interaction just before class and whatever. Or if you see them with their parents after class, or especially if you run into them, outside. I don't know if you see them in the shopping mall or whatever. These are golden moments, right? But you can also build relationship in the classes as well. Of course, we want to try and draw out all of the ones to speak, not just the ones that are the most rowdy. You can try and make them feel like grown-ups, right? Often boys don't like to be babied, right? So the more that you can make them feel like adults, the better, right? So you can make them be your assistant teacher, or can they help with this particular job? Can they take charge to look after this activity? Can they be the can they help you to play the game? So you're playing some game, and I don't know what it is. Captain's Coming. Do you play this, or Simon Says, or whatever? I mean, you could do it as the teacher, but could you give them a turn at doing it? The more that they feel grown up, that they feel like a leader, and it builds up their self-esteem or something like this. And this can be be helpful. And of course, you can build relationship in the class itself, right? So it's not just in the uh, the book before and after conversation, but um, with the kinds of games you play, the kinds of examples that you choose, the stories that you tell, all of these things will uh, we'll build relationships with them. I, I find that this relational aspect is really important, because I've got three boys at home, right, and more often than not, it's the boys who are getting in trouble instead of the girls, right? Instead of the girl, right? And so they're more likely for me to yell at them or discipline them or lose my patience with them and so on. But I noticed that when this happens, when they keep getting in trouble, right, it really affects my relationship with them, right? Because as their father, they want my approval. They really care about being accepted and so on. And so maybe they've done something wrong and they deserve to be in trouble. But when they get in trouble, suddenly they start to cry. They feel, they're very clingy and emotional because they're feeling rejected. You see, right? And you realize that they really long to be loved, to be accepted, to be included. And sometimes if they're always in trouble, they're always being disciplined, then it's the opposite of that. It's rejection. And if there's lots of rejection at home, and then you come, and it's the same in this Sunday school class, this is not ideal at all. So we need to work out how to break that cycle by consciously affirming them and valuing them and saying, yeah, I accept you, and I like you, and so on. So my children will often say things like this: play with me, read this for me, do this with me. And there's this longing for time, you see, for connection. They're not saying, Baba, talk with me, you know. They're not interested in that. That's not their idea of spending time. Their idea of connecting is, let's build Lego together. Let's play a game together. Let's read a book together. Let's do this activity together. And this is really, really, really important to them. So, and if you do that, then they're much more likely to respond when you ask them to do something or whatever. So it's just a reminder. The relational aspect is really important. I don't know if all boys are like this, but the need to be accepted and all of this. But it's a common thing, isn't it? It's easy for a man to have a bruised ego if they get in trouble or whatever. So the more that we can show that they're loved and accepted, then that's going to be really, really important. Okay, so there's an opportunity for you to reflect. I think we won't split off with this one, but what are some things that you could be doing to be building positive relationships with the boys in your class? It'd be really good to think about how you can be doing that. And you might find it doesn't necessarily happen in the classroom itself, but you can arrange some games day or something like that, some kind of social, of course, with the parents' permission and presence and so on. But some kind of way that you can engage with them on a personal level. That could be something that's really popular. All right, so ideas to engage boys. We've got the background, right? We've understood the boys. We've thought about how they tick. We've thought about how to build relationships. We've done all that. We're all here for the practical tips, though, aren't we? So let's get on to that aspect of it. I'm gonna start with the video just to mix things up, because I don't want me to be just talking at you all the time. So let's look at a video and hear from someone else. This video is called "Stop Being Boring, how to avoid being a boring teacher. I think that should be a helpful video for all of us to watch together. Now, how do I do this? Share sound. Okay.
Really important to say. But if you say it in a boring way, nobody's going to listen or care. How do you not be boring and teach so children will listen to you? Get ready for the 7 things that, if used correctly, will make your teaching engaging. If used improperly, will bore everyone every time. Starting now. Hello, my name is Ezra, and my mission is to equip you to rebuild a foundation of God's Word in the lives of children. Whether you're a parent, a Sunday school teacher, or a VBS teacher, I'm here to equip you to not be boring, so you can make a difference in the lives of children you teach. In this video, we're going to look at what makes a boring teacher, and how can we avoid being boring so you can have the biggest impact on those you influence. First, have you ever had a boring teacher? More than likely. Unfortunately, they're quite common. And as their student, what did you think of their class? What did you learn from their class? When someone is boring, students have a hard time staying focused. And because it's so boring, learning doesn't usually take place. And this is even worse if you're teaching kids. Being boring will ruin the opportunity you have to make an impact on their students. And if you're teaching the Bible, which is God's Word, why are you making it boring? The Bible is life-changing, and it should not be taught with boredom. But how do you avoid being boring? There are very specific things that you have that can be used either for boredom or for engagement. And we're going to go through those 7 things so you can avoid being boring. The first one is the #1 cause of boredom. Use this improperly and you'll bore people to death. Use it correctly though, and you can impact people without even the other 6. It is your voice. How do boring people use their voice? You tell me. Monotone. They stay in a tone like this. A little quiet, a little low, a little slow. They don't change their voice at all, and they bore people by dragging on and on. That is so boring. But now, you have full control over your voice, so you don't have to speak in monotone. You can change your voice. Talk high, talk low, talk fast, talk slow, talk loud, or talk soft. Use your voice to communicate. Listen to people in conversation. They don't talk in monotone, but they use the different aspects of their voice, and the result is engagement. It is very important to use your voice properly. In this video, we go more into depth of how you can use your voice to its full potential. Next is your eyes. Making eye contact is important. When people are uncomfortable, they'll tend to look down at their notes and keep talking though, but they're not making any eye contact. But not making eye contact will result in boredom. You also lose that personal connection to them. If I even shift this much over from you, you can tell that something's off, something's not connecting right. Our eyes communicate a lot, so make eye contact. Another problem with eye contact in multiple students is jumping around between different people and not really having any real eye contact, or trying to scan everyone at the same time, just going back and forth. To have proper eye contact, focus on one person at a time, and then shift to a different section, and talk to that person over there. Then shift over here to another person, and so on. Even with multiple students, this results in a feeling that you're making eye contact with all of them. #1, voice. #2, eyes. #3 is your face. What are your facial expressions? If you look bored, the children you're teaching will also probably be bored. Use emotion in your facial expressions. This is really important in storytelling. Get into the emotion of what's happening. You could say, and they were really angry. Boring. Or you could say, and they were really angry. Use your face to increase the emotion. Next is the use of your arms with gestures. The boring area is right here, making really big points. This is really important. What? This is where people feel comfortable with their gestures, but it's boring. You want to catch attention? Make big gestures. This is really important. Reach out, reach up, even out to them. Use your hands to communicate. So #1, voice. #2, eyes. #3, face. And #4, gestures. Now before we go on the next 3, if you're getting value out of this video, let me know by hitting that like button. That tells me which videos you would like to see. Also, if you want more videos just like this, be sure to hit that subscribe button and the bell icon so you'll be notified with each new video. Now, let's get back into it. Next is your movement. Boring teachers will stay behind the podium, holding on for dear life and not moving. You're not chained to that spot. Move around. Change spots every once in a while. The whole teaching area is yours to move around it. Even go down between them if possible. Use the whole area to teach in and don't just stay in one spot. Number 6 is energy. If you as the teacher have low energy, your students are going to have even lower energy. Low energy equals a dead class. Put energy in what you're doing. There are times when you're teaching when you may be tired, but for the sake of impacting your children, pour yourself into it. Keep things happening. Use your gestures, use your movement, go all in. Number 7 is keeping things engaging with visuals. Visuals can be props, pictures, hand motions, anything that's outside of yourself. This gives kids multiple things to look at. Not only will this make your teaching more engaging, but you can also solidify your teaching by using visuals. I actually have one more bonus tip to keep from being boring, but before we get to that, question of the day, if you've ever had a really engaging teacher, what did they do to keep your attention? Let me know down in the comments. My bonus tip for you is to break the script. So whatever normally happens, change it. Do something different. When we're expecting something or we're used to something, it becomes common and boring. So change it up. What if when your children came in, your teaching area was flipped? Well, this is new, what's happening? You've captured attention. So do something that they won't see coming. Make it new and you'll capture attention for sure. Click on the top video if you'd like to learn how to best use your voice to be engaging in teaching. As I said, the voice is the most important and effective even if you don't use the other 6. If you got value out of this video, be sure to subscribe and I'll see you in the next video.
All right. I hope you found that video interesting. And I think one of the takeaways from that video is that a lot of the tips that he gave for engagement there, they weren't even about, play this game, have this really exciting magic trick or anything like that, right? They don't require. I mean, apart from the last one, the visuals, they don't require you to do anything, right? They just require you to express yourself in a more interesting way. Lots of teachers will say that the number one important thing to bring to your classroom is energy. A lot of I think secular training will talk about that. If you yourself are not excited about what you're teaching, then why would the kids be excited? And the way that you communicate your excitement is, as he was saying, with your eyes and your hands and your voice going louder and softer and all the rest of it. This is really really important. So I'm going to give you some other ideas as well, but sometimes it's just about the basics, and even just telling a simple story with only your voice, it can be very, very engaging and exciting. Okay, so let's get in. I'll share my slides again, and let's hit through this section. Some ideas to engage boys, right? So he was saying towards the end there, just try to mix it up a bit. Don't let it be so predictable. Don't let it be always the same. Do something different. Come up with something to grab their attention. The other ones we talked about, too much talking, not enough games, not enough variety. Okay, so how you start is going to be really important, right? This is important for boys and girls, but I think it's more important for the boys. In the first few minutes, the boys will decide whether they want to listen to you or not. Right? Within probably 30 seconds or a minute, they will decide whether you're interesting, whether you're fun, whether this is relevant for them, or not. Right? And so, how you start is so important. Now, I'm not a this is not kind of my strength either, but I've seen it do. People do it really well. One of my friends down here in Penang, he does a lot of work with children, In fact, his full-time job is he works as a clown, and he does stuff in schools and all of this type of thing. And and so he can do all kinds of things. He can make balloons, and he can do magic tricks, and he can do, he's just one of those guys that is super fun and engaging. But this is what he does. He does so well, right? You walk into the classroom, the first thing, there will always be something exciting, and it could be something very simple. Like there was one. I don't remember how he did this, but it was something like he had a rubber band, right? And he'd put it on two fingers, and somehow he would get the rubber band to flick from these two fingers across to the other two fingers, right? And so that's how he'd start the lesson. Say, "Oh, I learned this new cool thing about how to get this rubber band to go from here to here." And then he'd do it, and be like, "Wow," and then he'd show them, first you do this, then you do this, and give them a rubber band, let them do it. Now, him doing this thing with the rubber band, is it got anything to do with the lesson? Nothing whatsoever. Did it take a lot of time? No, it didn't. It was like a 30-second activity, or a 1 minute or 2 minute activity. But the value of it was he got their attention. You see, this is someone who is interesting, who's fun, who's got something that I'm interested in doing. And then from there, he could go into the rest of he could go in the rest of the lesson because he's got their attention. Now, as I said, I'm not good at magic or tricks with rubber bands or whatever. Maybe I could flick my pen. I don't know. But the point is, you must start the lesson with something interesting, right? Try and get their attention. Why should they listen to you for the rest of this time? And it could be you tell them a story. It could be that you have a joke for them. You have a game to play. There's a video. You have a song. It doesn't matter, and you can mix it up from week to week. But just don't start the lesson saying, "What did we learn last week?" There are more interesting ways to start a lesson than that, right? That is just so boring. Like, oh yeah, all right, here we go again. Capture their attention with something fun to start. Second point is, give them something to look forward to. Give them something to look forward to. So very often, boys will be willing to tolerate the boring parts, like the story or whatever, if they've got something to look forward to, right? So if you say, all right, we're going to do, you give them a rundown of the program of what you're going to do for that day. Say, today we're going to be learning about this, and we're going to start off with this game, and then we're going to tell this story, and we're going to be doing this really exciting drama, and then later on we're going to be playing this other game, and you're going to really enjoy it. But we'll have to get through the other stuff first, and so if you can pay really good attention on the story, then we'll be able to get and play the game later. And so there's something to look forward to. There's some anticipation, and so you've got their attention at the start, and you've got them something to look forward to later on in the lesson. Because if you're just talking to them and they don't know when it's going to end and when the fun part is going to be, then they'll probably just misbehave and create their own fun. But very often we're willing to tolerate something slightly less boring if it means that there'll be something else later on. I often do this to my kids, and I say, look, we can watch TV at home, but only if you close your eyes and sleep in the car on the way home. It's like, okay, I can endure the sleeping part in order to look forward to the reward of watching the TV show when I get home. Third tip is give them opportunities to be physically active. We talked about this a lot already. You can't just have them sitting there for long periods of time. You've got to work out how to let them burn their energy, and there are lots of ways to do this. I mean, I don't know what your church is like. I mean, one of the churches where I was teaching Sunday school previously, they had some grass areas on the on the church site, and so it was actually possible to go out of the classroom and play games. And very often we would do that either at the beginning of the lesson or the end. Uh, is to actually go out and play some running games in the grass on the grass field, and the games may or may not be related to the lesson. But the point is, if you can burn off some of the energy at the start, right, then you've got less of that kind of, as they're just sitting there, the energy builds up. It'll be expressed in bad ways, right? But if you're able to expend the energy at the start, running, playing whatever game. I don't know, what games do you play here? We used to play Stuck in the Mud, or tag, or whatever games there are. It doesn't matter whichever one you like to do. If they're older, you can play captain ball. It doesn't really matter. I mean, but some activity to expend their energy can be good. Maybe you can also do it in the classroom itself. They need to run to different corners of the classroom. We used to, if you're doing you could play a true or false quiz, right? Instead of just saying, do you think it's true or do you think it's false? You can get them to stand up, do one action if it's true and one action if it's false, or it's true and false. Then if it's true, you run to this end of the room. If it's false, you run to this end of the room, and the last person to get there is eliminated. This kind of thing. I mean, you need to have you need to make sure your classroom is a safe thing, so they're not going to run over and smash into a TV and whatever, right? But if there is the space available in your room, and you can get them to run about and move about like this is really good. One of my favorite activities for memory verse games, right? If you're trying to teach them memory verse, you get your memory verse, you cut it up into pieces of paper, and then you put each of the pieces of paper into a balloon, and then pop up the balloon, and they need to run from one end, grab the balloon, pop the balloon, get the thing out, and do it. Now, some kids don't like balloons. Fine, don't use balloons. But some other thing, they have to run up, they get the thing, they bring it back, then they arrange it together. It's a very kinesthetic activity. You're giving them an actual chance to run, right? To shout, and they're not going to get in trouble for it. In fact, it's the whole point of the game. Could you divide your lesson into different sections, and each section is in a different station, in a different part of the classroom where you've got things set up? Are there ways that they can participate in the story, so that as you're telling the story, at different points they need to stand up, they need to walk around, or whatever it is? I remember one of my most memorable lessons, and the disclaimer here is make sure you know the child's food allergies before you do this. But yeah, there was one class where I think we were teaching about them going through the wilderness and being fed with manna and quail or whatever. And so as I was telling the story, they would actually be walking around the classroom just like they're wandering through the desert. And I went to the mama and I bought roti, and I bought some fried chicken, like quail, like KFC, and and so we walked through, and then we were all feeling hungry, and we stopped and we ate some roti, and then we went on and we ate some fried chicken. It's very fun, it's very engaging. But when we're moving around, we're using all of our senses. These kinds of things can be really good. So yeah, so let me pull the slides back up. So think about ways that they can participate rather than just sitting around, right? So how can you use all the senses? There's 5 senses, right? Taste, touch, sight, hearing, etc. How can you engage all of those different senses? How can you make it hands-on, right? Can you make it a physically acted out illustration rather than simply a picture or description. So say Jesus teaching in the Jesus teaching saying, wide is the road that leads to destruction, narrow is the road that leads to light. Well, theoretically, if you were just purely audio, then you could just tell the story. If you were a visual learner, then you could you could get a picture, right? A picture of a big door and a picture of a small door. That's certainly going to be better. But could you act it out, right? Could you make a big door and everyone walks through, and then you make it smaller, and then you make it smaller, and then there's a narrow door which they've got to try and squeeze through, or something like that. It's going to be more engaging because it's no longer just a picture, but it's now an acted out illustration. Even simple things is like this. So say you wanted to have your these days a lot of teachers, they love to use I don't know, PowerPoint slides. You download your pictures and you put them on the projector or the TV screen, and this is good, but it's doing that. It's purely visual, isn't it? But if you made a prop, or you printed out something tangible, and then you got the child to pick it up, to hold it, or to stick it on the board, or to arrange it in a certain way, it's still really the same activity, but now you've turned it into a kinesthetic activity rather than just a purely visual thing. So instead of just telling the story, can you act out the story in some way? This can make a difference. Can you use a quiz or a game for revision? We've talked about this already with the with the big dice and all of this. But there are many ways that you can do this. Say, for example, this is another one of my favorites: is you make some kind of puzzle, right? Maybe it's a 3x3 puzzle, and underneath is a picture. And maybe the picture is related to your lesson for that day in some way, right? But then you cover it with other papers. So maybe there's 9 squares covering a picture underneath, right? And then you can number them 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, or however. And then you ask your revision question. So if you get the answer right, then you get to peel off one of the pictures, right? And then as you peel off the picture, you've got to try and guess what is, what's underneath, right? And if you get it wrong, then it goes over to the other team, and they try, and eventually they guess what the picture is. So there's many of these kinds of things that you can turn revision into games. As you tell the story, mix it up. I heard one of us here sharing this in a small group earlier today. They found that one of the effective things that works with boys is to just ask them lots of questions. They said that many of the boys, they like to answer questions. So as you're telling your story, stop halfway, ask them a question, mix it up a bit, because most kids only have 1 minute attention span for each year they are old. So if you can mix it up as you tell the stories, tell part of the story, and then let's have ask some questions, and then tell the next part and sing a song, and then tell the next part and play a game. Then this can break it up, and you haven't used your full quarter of their attention, because every time you move to a slightly new activity, you've regained their attention again. Let the boys be loud, right? Because they want to be loud generally anyway. But try to give them points in the lesson where it's okay for them to be loud, right? It could be like reading something or singing something, but it could be just in the middle of the story. I can remember one of my lessons. This may have got out of control. I don't know, but we were learning about the cross, and we were going through the story where the crowds were calling for Jesus' death. And I've made, earlier in the lesson they had made these signs that said "Crucify him" on it, and I said, look, when we get to this point in the story, you need to shout out really loud, "Crucify him," and whatever. And of course they really got they really got into it too much, and so who knows what the other who knows what the other classes next door were thinking, and the parents picked them up, and what was the class about today? Crucify him! Crucify him! They're like, what on earth is this? Is this teacher teaching these children? The point is, they were really into it. Okay, they were really engaged. They liked the idea that they had to shout. You can do it with memory verses again as well, right? If you want them to say something, you say, why don't you say it in a soft voice? Why don't you say it in a really loud voice? Why don't you, you can mix it up in this way. And if you give them moments where it's okay to be loud, then in the other parts, hopefully they're okay to control themselves. So it's about using their energy, using their loudness for productive means that contributes to the lesson, rather than just always suppressing it. Let them ask questions, and if they do ask a question, make sure you spend time to answer it. I know there's not a lot of culture of this in an Asian setting, especially in our school settings. I think asking questions is usually frowned upon. Sometimes it's seen as disrespectful, even. I don't know if you're Chinese ed, then basically it's about rote learning. The teacher says it, you rote learn it in your exam, you reproduce it exactly. That's kind of the education system. It doesn't exactly promote curiosity and asking questions. But even though that's the case, we all have questions, right? Whether or not we feel we can ask them or not, we still have questions, and children have lots of questions too. And so I find it's really helpful to give them give them an opportunity to ask their questions. I always like the idea of having a question box, and they can write down their questions. They put their questions in the question box, and maybe you can invite a child to pull out one of the questions, and then you have a go at answering it. It depends on how, if you don't feel confident to answer questions off, answer random kids' questions just on the spot, then of course you could get it picked out, and then you can come back and answer it next week. But I think this can be quite good to give them opportunities to ask questions if they're a little bit older. Teamwork, group work can be really good. So you divide them into teams, give them a particular job, and then they report back to the big group. Or it could be that you have some chart on the board or whatever, and they need to fill in the gaps, they need to fill in the answers, and then people come up and stick things on, stick pictures on, stick answers on, or whatever. But this kind of collaborative group work can be quite good. Time for independent discovery. This obviously is older kids, younger kids cannot do this. But once the boys are like 10, 11, they probably do have their own ideas. Maybe you could give them passage, ask them to come up with some creative thing to do with it. Come up with a one common thing that I used to do is to if a lot of the Bible is narrative, right? And sometimes the narrative sections we're teaching is quite long. So say it was Jericho or whatever, then you divide it up and you say, okay, you divide it into main scenes. Maybe you've got 4 scenes, and then you divide your class into 4 groups, right? And this group has to come up with a pose or a drama or something to do this scene, and then this group has to do this scene, and this group has to do this scene. If they're younger, then you can do it with pictures as well. Draw a picture about this aspect of the story, draw an aspect about this, and you just number them, and then as you tell the story, you show you show their pictures, and because it's their pictures that they made, sometimes that can be interesting. Um, Brain breaks, right? It's great to have just a couple of um, uh, really really short games, like 1 minute games, that you can play to just wake them up, right? Um, and it can be something very simple. I mean, there's this game I used to play called Bzz. I don't know if you've heard of it before, but you just come up with 3 actions. Let's just make up 3 actions now. Let's have bird. Bird is, you put your arm, play along with me. I know it's hard to play games on Zoom, but let's try. We've got bird, right? We have got I don't know, pray, and let's have hat. Let's call this hat. I don't know. So bird, pray, hat. Okay, they're just three action, right? And I'm going to say 1, 2, 3, bzz, right? And then you must pick one of those actions, right? I'll also pick one of those actions, and whoever picks the same action as me is out. Okay, and then you're eliminated. Let's just try this together. I don't know how this will work on Zoom. If everyone got your camera on, if you get eliminated, you just turn your camera off, and we'll see who's left at the end. See if this will work. Okay. Everyone know the actions? We've got bird, we've got pray, and we've got hat. Okay, everyone ready? 1, 2, 3. Bzz. All right, I did pray. If you've got pray, you're out. Now, okay, now it's the practice round. You should always give people a second chance, for kids, right? So you're back in the game. Everyone back in the game. Now you know how to play. Let's go. 1, 2, 3. Bzz. Any praise? You're out. Yeah, off your camera. Yeah. 1, 2, 3. Bzz. All right. Birds are out. Yeah. 1, 2, 3. Bzz. All right. I got a lot of hats there. You're all out. Yeah. Who's left? Oh, there's still quite a few left. I've still got 15 left, maybe. All right. Awesome. 1, 2, 3. Bzz. All right. The praise are out. All right. 1, 2, 3. Bzz. Hats are out. Off your camera if you're out. 1, 2, 3. And bzz. 1, 2, 3. Bzz. 1, 2, 3, and bzz. All right, now let's make it harder. I'm going to off my camera so you can't watch me, and then copy from the time lag on your video, okay? 1, 2, 3, bzz. All right, it's pray. 1, 2, 3, and bzz. Yes, got a few more. The hats are out. Christine, you're out. Yeah. 1, 2, 3. Bzz. Right. This one is bird. Any birds? Birds are out. I think who's that? Lightning. I think you were out then. Yeah. Okay, we don't need to go to the end, right? So the 6 of you that are left, you are the winners. Let's give them a digital clap. Well done. You can collect your lollipop prize from your pastor tomorrow at church. Okay. Okay, so I mean, it's a very simple game. It's the kind of game you can just play in 1 minute or 2 minutes. But it just breaks things up, and it's a bit of fun, and then you can get back into the lesson. So these are really really good for boys. Okay, you can give them jobs to do, right? Um, let boys lead. I mean, we were talking earlier in terms of Genesis, right, about how God makes us male and female, and makes um, he makes Adam first as the head to lead, and then he makes the woman second as the helper. So it's good even at a young age to be encouraging the boys to lead. Yeah, give them responsibilities, and there are different ways you could do this. You could write it. You could write it down on a piece of paper, and then you hand it to them at the beginning of the class. You could put it in a hat or a box, and they draw it out, etc. But yeah, that's their job to do during the class that day, and it could be anything. I mean, you can just make up anything. If they're younger kids, they get to help you clean up the toys. They get to close the door. They get to play some simple instrument during the singing. They get to hold a piece of paper or whatever it is. You can come up with your random job. If they're older kids, obviously there's more things they can do. They can help you rub off your whiteboard, clean up the rubbish from the craft, put the Bibles away. Just they can help you distribute the sheets, count how many students is there, switch on the air conditioner, push your PowerPoint slides, tell you how much time is left in the lesson. Rearrange the table, see who puts up their hand first. Whatever it is, it doesn't really matter, but just give them some kind of job to do, and it makes them feel important, makes them feel responsible, gives them an opportunity to lead. This is a good thing to try. Can you make it competitive or offer a reward? We've talked about this. Boys will do almost anything if you are willing to make it into a game. It doesn't matter what it is. It could be the most stupid thing about who can color in the sheet the best or whatever. But if it's a game and there's a prize, then they'll probably will do it. So I find on this that they're usually especially willing to play along if you make the game of boys versus girls, right? I'm a big fan of boys versus girls in the classroom. Now, but of course, if you're going to do boys versus girls, make sure it's a fair fight, right? Because otherwise, the girls will always win, and you'll just irritate the boys in the class when they lose every single game that you play with them. So try to make it a game that they have a chance of winning in some ways. Give them some kind of challenge, right? They've got to work out the answer to a difficult question. There's a puzzle that they need to solve. I mean, that's kind of the thing when you talk about the revision activity with a puzzle. You've got to remove the thing and work out what it is. They love the kind of secret codes where number 1 represents A, number 2 represents B, or some other kind of hidden code system. They usually love this kind of puzzle sheets and things like that. But don't make it too difficult, because they have to be able to do it. Give them tasks where they can repeat it and improve over time, right? So I don't know what it is. Maybe say we go back to the memory verse idea, and the idea of the memory verse game is that they need to put the things in, you cut the words into different things, and they need to re-put it in the right order. Or you're doing a revision activity, you're trying to remind them of the story from last week, so you've got a picture of each major scene in the story, and then they need to arrange the story in the right order, or whatever the activity is, right? If you just play it once, then that's okay. But why don't you could potentially do it multiple times, right? And then you have someone with a stopwatch timing it and see how many seconds can they do it in. 4.5 seconds to arrange the memory verse, and then can we do it in 4.3 seconds? Can we do it in 4.2 seconds? What's our world record for arranging the memory verse? You begin to master it over time. You can make gradual improvements. This can be quite good luck. Um, yeah. So or you try and build in some kind of system where uh, they can try again if they got it wrong, right? So basically, you're thinking here about computer games because computer games are so addictive, aren't they? And you think of whatever random computer game that they're playing on their parents' mobile phone, and say it's some kind of I don't know, cooking game or something like that, hamburger shop or something like that. Well, the first level is very easy, right? All the pieces come out really slow. There's not many things. It's very easy to pass the level, and then you go on to level 2, and it's faster, and there's more customers, and you go to level 3, and there's even more, and there's more elements, becomes more complicated, and then level 4 and level 5, and it gradually gets harder. But as you complete each level, then you get a number of stars, and then the stars can be used to redeem something in the shop, so that you can customize whatever thing, and etc. This is often how the games work, isn't it? They're made in this addictive kind of way where it's step by step, and it's gradually getting harder with rewards for each step that you go along. So you can potentially do this kind of thing in your lesson as well. Okay. Design lessons that end in finished products. Yeah, maybe you're as you go through the lesson, you're building something. I mean, it could be an activity sheet, but it could be um, some kind of craft or object or something like that. And as you go through, you're doing the next part. You're doing the next part, and then they have something that they can take home. Here's my finished product. My boys really love doing. At this point, they really love doing crafts and yeah, whenever they finish their Sunday school lesson, they love to come home and say, "Look, this is the craft that I made." So I think these kind of things the craft can be very effective because it's quite hands on um, for them, and teaching in an engaging way. This is really what we looked at in the video just now. Using your voice, fast, slow. The thing to remember when you're dealing with kids is what we consider embarrassing as adults is just interesting for an audience, right? Um, so we feel that if I've got my hands like this and I'm jumping up and down in the classroom, that I'm making a fool of myself, and I think, the other teacher there is looking at me and thinking, why is this 50-year-old auntie jumping up and down and waving her hands as if it's a disco or whatever? And we think, this is just too embarrassing, right? But for the kids, it's not embarrassing at all. It's fun. It's exciting. And so, let your head down. Be a bit larger than life. It won't be embarrassing. It will actually be fun, and maybe you'll enjoy it as well. Graphics, pictures, storyboards. There's lots of different ways to do this. And when I was growing up, because the PowerPoint stuff was not very developed yet, so we used to use other forms. They used to have these craft shops and stuff where you can buy felt things, and then you can stick them onto the felt boards and move things around, and you can move the character around and things like this. And it's quite engaging because it's visual, but it's also something that you can move around, and you can kind of tell the story in this way. I think they used to call them flannel graphs and all this kind of stuff. This stuff still works. It still works today. We're not limited to just using PowerPoint and videos and so on. There's lots of interesting ways to tell your lesson. I find these days we tend to default to going onto YouTube and finding a video about the passage and playing the video. And that's fine. But there's lots of other ways that you can do it. There's different ways of telling stories, different visual aids. We've got all the skits and the dramas and the puppets and the finger puppets. When's the last time you can make your own puppet? If you can't make a puppet, you can. They're very simple to make, aren't they? I mean, you can just get your sock, put a few eyes on it, and then put your sock on your hand, and you've got a puppet already. Or even just get your finger and draw two eyes and a mouth, and you've got you've got your finger puppets. So I think sometimes in our reliance on media, you see, with video and YouTube and PowerPoint and all slides and all this, sometimes we've forgotten the more traditional teaching methods, and but these can work really really well. Dressing up as characters, wearing costumes, um, sticking things up, having a guest interview with a special guest that you bring in. There's lots of things that you can do to mix up your teaching. I do have a whole other training about this, about storytelling and drama and all this. If you want to do that, we can come back. Maybe we can do that. We can do that another time. Yeah. But the point is, try and mix it up. Try and be engaging. And there's more things that we can do than just simply telling a story. I've got a couple more examples here, and I know some of us need to need to go off. Um, be personal. Can you tell a personal story about something that happened? Often that can be something that's very powerful. Use relevant examples. So it's really this is the same for adults, isn't it? But if you tell a story, or you're talking about a topic that is of no interest to you, then it can be very boring, isn't it? Now, as a pastor, I talk to all kinds of people, and generally speaking, if you can get someone to talk on the topic that is interesting to them, then they will just talk a lot, right? And people have their topic. It's either Malaysians, it's usually food, politics, football or badminton or some kind of sport. Um, it, uh, if for some people it's fishing, it's gardening, it's their children's activities, whatever it is. But if you find the topic that is interesting to them, then they will talk, right? But when someone is talking to you about something that you have no interest in at all, so someone's just going on and on about baseball. I mean, unless you're American, Korean, Japanese, etc., you're probably not very interested in baseball. So if someone keeps telling you about baseball and about this guy who striked out and about how you run, you probably couldn't care, because that's not what you are interested in, right? But if someone starts talking about something that you are interested in, like badminton or football or whatever, then you're going to be more engaged. It's the same for kids. It's the same for boys. So you've got to think, what do they like? You see, what do they like? Lego. What do they like? Whatever's on, whatever's on Disney Channel. They love Pep. They've gone through all. My kids have gone through all the things, right? Paw Patrol and Peppa Pig and PJ Masks and Bluey and blah blah blah. I mean, I could name all of the different TV shows and cartoons that they've gone through. Use these for examples, right? Use the things that they actually like in everyday life. Because the moment that you mention whatever it is, Paw Patrol or whatever, then it's interesting, because that's what they like to do. See, or you mention I don't know, what is it at the moment? Roblox seems to be the big the big thing for lots of kids. I don't know, is it still Minecraft or whatever? But they all have their particular games that they're really into. So if you can use something from their world as your story or example to illustrate, then of course that's going to be much more interesting than you talk about baseball or fishing or something that they don't care about. You see, and sometimes this is the problem with the materials that we're using, because most of the materials that we're writing are not written by Malaysians. They're usually written in America, or they're written in UK or Australia. So they use Western examples from Western culture that don't necessarily connect with our kids, which is why you've always got to think about, as you're preparing your lesson, okay, that's great that they've used that illustration, but how could I change it to fit with my culture? The video we watched talked about moving around, right? So moving around the classroom. You can walk around. You can have different corners for different parts. This can be interesting. Move around where you are. Change where they are. You can, if they're misbehaving, divide and conquer. Move them into different groups. So the point is, there are many things that you can try. There are lots of ways to engage. Sometimes it's just about your own creativity, and I think a lot of it comes down to our actually putting in the effort to think, how can I make this more interesting? So you do your first draft of your lesson, and then you think, okay, how could I, instead of saying this, how could I show it, or how could we act it, or how could I make it a game? Much of the engaging voice is going to come down to this type of work. I want to stop here, and I want to again throw you back to your groups to reflect on this. Which of these suggestions stands out for you? Are there 2 or 3 that you could pick, and you could try and do that in your next class? That would be great. Now, my qualification here is when you say, okay, here's this great idea, you can try it in your next class. It may or may not work, isn't it? It may not work because of that particular child. It may not work because this is the first time you did it and you didn't do it very well, right? So with a lot of these ideas, it's okay. You need to try it again and try it again and try it again. And as you do it over time, you work out what works, what doesn't work, what you are good at, what you're not good at, and so on. So let's divide into our groups. If you need to go, that's totally fine. But let's spend a few minutes to reflect and think, yeah, what are some ideas here I can use in my class? So the last section then is about disciplining boys, and I'm not going to say too much here because there's really we have a whole other training module about classroom management and discipline. If you go onto the YouTube later, you can find a whole session about that. It's 2 or 3 hours training session with all the things about how to do classroom management. So I'm not planning to repeat all of that here. So let me just make a few preliminary comments and then a couple of suggestions as it relates to boys in particular. But one thing I would say is, if you do well on all the other parts of the training today, and you're actually able to engage them more, you will also find that your behavior issues reduces, you see, because very often the behavior issues is because they are bored, and so the energy is misdirected and in ways that we feel is disruptive and requires our discipline. So if you're able to make them more engaged with what you're doing, then it's less likely that they're going to take you off track in other places. When we think of classroom management and discipline, we usually focus on the discipline aspect of it, how to stop them from doing bad stuff, right? And you think, okay, here's the punishments that you need to do and so on. But we've always got to remember that discipline is only 50%, right, of managing a class, right? The more that you're able to get the positive stuff going, get them involved in activities, encouraging and rewarding good behaviors and reinforcing the good behaviors, then there's less that you need to do in terms of correcting the bad behaviors. So I think Steph maybe has posted a link there. Do check that out. But there's a couple of points, especially as they relate to the boys. Number one, keep the discipline proportionate, right? Know which things you can just overlook and which things you need to you need to intervene on them. So if they're being disruptive because you've made them sit there for 15 minutes and they're just getting fidgety or whatever, then this is not really can be classified as a very bad behavior. Yeah, it's disruptive and so on, but it's probably because of our bad expectations and making them sit for too long. And so that's something that you don't want to come down very harshly on. Whereas if it's something else where they're bullying another child or being violent in some way or lying or something, then maybe the discipline needs to be more. The reason why boys keep pushing boundaries is they rarely face the consequences of their actions. I think that this can be the case for me as a father. I think sometimes I'm too lenient on things. I try to err on the side of being gracious and forgiving and giving second chances and so on. But sometimes if you do that and you never say, okay, this is the consequence for your action, then you never change. You see, you never learn. So it's never discipline unless you carry through. Threats are not discipline. Punishment is discipline, right? So if you say you're gonna do something, you need to do it. If you don't do it, then you're just teaching them that it doesn't matter. They're not going to get in trouble. They can get away with it. They can be manipulative and sinful, but often they're just immature and they just did the first thing that came to their mind without thinking about it, right? So there's a difference when you just you're tired, your brain switched off, and you just did the first stupid thing that came into your head. There's a difference between that and just being knowing what you're doing and being deliberately malicious or hurtful to someone. Those are in different categories. We need to just distinguish those. Help them to connect the dots. Why did they do it? What's the effect that they had on others? So when they pushed that child, or when they yelled out that thing, or they whatever they did, what effect did that have on the class? Try to draw out the consequences of their actions, and teach them step by step. What did you do? What would be right to do in that situation? Were you thinking about this when you hit that boy? What were you feeling? Were you feeling angry? Were you bored? Were you upset? And so it's kind of just trying to help them talk through the process of what actually is going on. And that's why discipline is, growing right behavior is harder than just say, you screwed up, now go and sit in the corner. Because sometimes, I'd even posit frequently, they don't know what they're actually in trouble for. I think this happens with my own parenting, where that they will have done something wrong, and so I discipline them, and then they're thinking, well, I didn't do anything wrong, I didn't. But actually, they did do something wrong. It's just I didn't do a good job of explaining what was done wrong, and therefore what they're in trouble for. But if you don't know what you're in trouble for, you're never going to change. You see, so it takes more work to actually spend time to talk about what happened, what they could have done differently. But that's how change happens. I mean, there's a point again to that book, Shepherding a Child's Heart. It's the reminder that your behaviors is just the outward action, but it flows from what's going on in your thoughts and in your heart. So actually changing someone's actions requires us to do a bit more hard work here. Most adults only ask them to stop their misbehavior, but never spend time to help them know what's really going on. Right? So talking it through with them. You can do direct warnings. Stop this, or this is going to happen. But often it's better to just get them back on track by asking them to do something. Can you read this? Can you hold this picture? And so on. And always remember that the misbehavior may be just to be cool, or to get attention from you as the teacher. And so, if you see those pleas for approval and acceptance, then don't try not to overly reject them by your discipline. Those are just a couple of thoughts, I think. But let me point you to that that module on classroom management and discipline. That will help you to think through it a lot more. So as we conclude, then I'm going to give you a few moments to fill out that reflection sheet. But let me just draw a couple of things here. So this is going to be your reflection sheet to fill out. What are boys like? Why do boys get bored? How to build positive relationships? How to positively engage? How to discipline? And what I'm hoping is that you will write down just one thing under each of those questions, and then this will be your your takeaway sheet, that as you prepare your next lesson, you have this list in front of you, and that will help you to make some improvements. There's some resources. So there's one book that is I recommend here. It's called Raising Boys by Steve Biddulph. This it's a secular book. It's not a Christian book, but it's now in its, you can see it's in its third edition. It's sold millions of copies, and in fact, if you might know the ministry Focus on the Family, which is a great ministry building relationships between parents and children. If you've never heard of it, check it out. Focus on the Family Malaysia. They also have bookstore, and they have various ones there. If you can read Chinese, then you can get the Chinese version for 40 ringgit. Right? If you cannot read Chinese and you can only read English, then you need to go to either Kinokuniya online store or Amazon Singapore, and you can get it, and it will cost you double the price at 80 ringgit plus shipping, right? So there are advantages of speaking Chinese. If you don't speak either of those languages, then it's going to be tough for you. Yeah, but yeah, it's a great book, and you'll find that there's a summary in the appendix. Maybe I'll just share that with you. So if you don't want to read the whole book, then you can look at the summary, and yeah. So it talks about there's 3 stages of boyhood. Birth to 6, 6 to 13, 14 and onwards, and their needs at the different stages. Boys need order, structure and rules, boundaries of behavior. They're concerned with competitiveness. They have an inherent need for lots of activities and physical space. Baby boys' brains develop more slowly than in baby girls' brains. And it says you should talk to them. If you're a parent, talk a lot to your young boy. Read them lots of stories. Boys take more time to be ready for school. So if you've got a boy, don't send them to school too early. Fathers play an important role. We've talked about that. Involve your son in helping around the house from a very young age. It prepares for independent living. It helps them not to be a lazy husband that doesn't do any housework around the house. Some of you maybe have husbands like that, or your father has been like that. But this is where in the training materials it was talking about give them jobs to do, like rubbing the board and this kind of thing. This is the Sunday school equivalent of this kind of thing in the home. It talks about when to talk about sex, how to help them overcome arrogance, because boys tend to be very proud, bullying, and then it talks about sport. So again, it's a secular book. It's not a Christian book, but it does. What it will do is help you to understand how boys tick and give you certain ideas of how to do that. So if you have girls, he's also written one called Raising Girls, which is also an excellent book. You could also check that out if you are interested. And then on the final pages, you will see there's recommendations for different books, Sunday school materials, Bibles, websites, music, and so on. But in terms of this topic, there's the resources section there. Where is it? Yeah, right. And you, apart from that book, there's some various blog posts, teaching resources, and some of them are secular, because teachers do research into how to engage boys in the class. So there's a variety of resources there. But if you want to go in more detail than what we've looked at here, then those are places that you can go to dig further. So I think this is probably a good place to finish. So what I'll do is I'll give you I'll send this back into our groups one last time, and I want you to just share what's the one big thing that has impacted you today. And maybe once you've shared your one thing, feel free to head off. And if you don't want to head off, then I'll hang back. And if there's any more questions you want to ask, I can do that for a few minutes as well. So let me pray to formally finish. We can go into our groups. You can head off if you want, discuss if you want, and then further Q&A we can do. But let me pray. Our Heavenly Father, thank you so much for making us in your image, male and female. Lord, help us to love and cherish the boys in our classes. Lord, we know that they are different, but you have made them this way. And Lord, we pray that you make us more effective in engaging them, teaching them, in appreciating them, and discipling them, that they may be boys who grew up into men who are leaders and servants in your church, who love you and sacrifice themselves in serving others. Lord, we pray that you help us as we go from here to apply the things that we've learned, and we pray that they will, you will help us to be more effective in our ministry in Sunday school. So we commit all these things to you. In Jesus' name we pray. Amen.